Hi. Today I wanted to talk about rape culture in schools. I don't know if I'm going to call it rape culture. I'm going to call it maybe sexism. I don't know. I feel like rape culture is a bit intense of a word. Let's get into it. So I went to a school that was like a relatively high-end-ish kind of school. Before I went to the school, I grew up in like a kind of cultural bubble. So luckily, I never really experienced much sexism growing up. I used to observe these things in school and I used to always be like, what the fuck, right? Like, what is wrong with you people? And nobody else seemed to have this response. Like, everyone else was kind of like, yeah, well, this is just the way that it goes. I have never been able to say out loud how screwed up I thought these things are. No one wants to hear it. Everyone thinks that I'm being like over dramatic. So, one of the first things I noticed an extreme obsession with coverage and clothing. My school uniform was shorts, right? And girls wore shorts to school. They were so obsessed with how long the shorts were. I remember there was this one professor, oh, that's really giving a lot of credit. There was this one dude that was like the head of boarding or whatever, and he was like supposed to be the liberal one. I remember he came to our hostel, and he was like, well, I don't have a problem with girls wearing shorts, but they shouldn't be like the ass short. Your ass shouldn't be out. First of all, that's not a real problem. Like, you just made that up. My biggest issue with this entire conversation is how you can look at a young girl who's like 13 or 14, see her legs, and decide that, oh, that's too sexy. That's too sexy. We can't have her looking that hot in school. As far as I'm concerned, if a 15-year-old girl walks around in a bikini, nobody should be going, oh, no, 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 that's too much. It's a kid, bro. It's a kid. It's a child. Leave her alone. The same way that you leave little boys alone and you don't make comments about how hot they are. And this is not about protecting the kids. Okay, let's just put a pause there, because like people are gonna be like, well, the pedophiles. First of all, why are there pedophiles at your school? Get rid of the pedophiles then. And you think you're gonna stop pedophiles being pedophiles by making the girls like wear more clothes? I assure you, if there's a pedophile in the school, he's gonna get what he wants. They're gonna get what they want. Sorry about the he. I find the whole thing absolutely utterly bizarre. And even when I was in school, as a little kid in school, I was like, what is wrong with you? Why are you looking at me and being like, oh my god, she's so hot? Like, you are a grown ass weird man. Please leave me alone. I genuinely believe that this obsession with young girls and what they wear made the boys in that school really weird. And I'll get into that a bit more. But the next one was constantly attributing like whatever a girl did to like wanting to impress boys, and they did this for the boys as well. So we were supposed to always have our hair up, and I remember this one time this professor is crazy. This bitch saw my friend with her hair down because she had washed it in the morning. It was like wet. We were like walking, and then she goes, oh, are you like trying to impress the boys by having your hair down? Like, why are you trying to tempt the boys? What are you fucking talking about? Literally, what are you talking about? And there was so many things like that, right? Like, I remember on my, this kind of goes back to the clothes thing, on my 10th grade farewell, I was wearing a dress, and then my coordinator came up to me and she was like, how dare you wear such a teeny tiny dress? Are you trying to like get all the boys horny? She didn't say horny, but like she heavily implied horny. And at this point, I had already had a bit of a reputation for being like a slut or whatever. So she was like, go wear some shorts. And I was like, that would look so stupid. That would look so stupid. She was like, tuck your dress into the shorts and wear shorts. What? On my farewell? And by the way, the bitch who fucking told me this, the bitch who told me this was like the one teacher that all the boys were obsessed with because she had the fat ass. She had the fattest ass in the world. And she used to like come in like the tightest jeans, and she used to sit on the table and like swing her legs and like be all, cutesy. Every single man in my class was obsessed with her. Meanwhile, I was like a prepubescent stick. So if you really want to talk about distracting the boys, babe, look inward. This is not even about slut shaming her, because again, I know that she was being unfairly sexualized by the boys in my class. And in fact, it was almost good to have an attractive teacher around so that they had to learn to respect women beyond their sexuality. And like, just because a woman is attractive to you doesn't mean that you get to objectify her all the time. Like, you actually do have to respect her and get over it and, be a decent person. Whatever. That's again besides the point. This bloody bitch, though, I I cannot. I'm so mad, like literally just thinking about it. And then I remember we had like a dress code with like what shoe colors we would wear, which again, like what is with this obsessive regulation of like ridiculous things? What is the requirement? Anyway, so we had like a thing where you could only wear shoes that were like a particular color, but this was like not an enforced rule at all. Everyone just wore whatever shoes they want. And this one boy was wearing like these yellow shoes. And this same bitch who was talking to my friend about the hair was like, "Oh, why are you wearing these yellow shoes? You know they're not allowed. You think the girls are going to be impressed with your yellow shoes?" What? Are you deranged? Are you crazy for you to even think that I would be impressed by some guy because it's so hot that he's wearing yellow shoes? Huh? What the fuck is wrong with you, you crazy fucking bitch? Just stop it. Stop it. Leave children alone. And if they are trying to impress the opposite gender, let them. It is developmentally appropriate for 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year old people to start developing romantic and even sexual relationships. It's just this huge moral failure if they are trying to impress the other gender by doing whatever. Stop it. Leave kids alone. Stop it. You crazy fucking woman. What is wrong with? I'm sorry, this like literally makes me so fucking mad. So why is this shit? So next thing was like hyper focusing on like children's interpersonal relationships, constantly like misconstruing them, not even correctly construing them. So I had a boyfriend in the 8th grade. I don't even think he was my boyfriend at the time, but like he had like a sandwich and I was like chasing him to get the sandwich. And one of my teachers like sat me down and she was like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? We all already have a really bad impression of you, and when you behave like this it's really embarrassing and you need to stop." And I was like, behaving like what? Like I was not naive, like I knew exactly what she was talking about, but I wanted her to say it out loud. I was like, fuck you. I was already so mad at these people at this point, but I was like, what are you talking about? And she was like, "Oh, you know, when you run around, like it really gives a bad impression." And mind you, let me just suck my own dick for a moment. I was an intelligent kid, okay? I was like really getting good grades. I used to sing, I used to dance, I used to do sports, I used to do everything. I was like a really all rounded kid. Not anymore though, now a piece of shit. I had all these other qualities about me, and the one thing you wanted to focus on is that I was chasing a boy to get a Nutella sandwich, and that was just this humongous moral failing that, like, just it erased every good attribute that I had to me. Like, fuck you. There was one more professor. I keep saying professor. There was one more asshole that like was obsessed again with like not letting me sit with my boyfriend in class. He was just obsessed with it. And like, why leave me alone? There was so many times even in my later years, like I was literally not dating anybody, but like there was this one guy that I was like really good friends with, and my professor used to be like, "We can see you touching boys on the camera, like you need to stop touching boys." And the touching would be like giving a high five. The next thing was this obsession with touch. Oh my god. And I feel like this is the one that caused the maximum issues for the men, women, and the children at that fucking school. Because this was the most dumb fucking thing in the whole world. So my school had a no touch policy. This meant that no student was allowed to touch any other student. You could be a girl or you could be a boy, and you couldn't touch girls or boys and whatever's in the middle. That is not how human beings are supposed to be. No wonder children would like regularly have mental breakdowns. I can see why. It is not natural for human beings to just have no touch. And those of us that were like in boarding school, that would mean that like for months at a time we would have no human contact at all. Like obviously we did not follow these rules, but was that the expectation, that like we were never going to touch each other? And also the bigger issue that came out of this was that it made the boys start to think that any sort of touch was sexual, and they could not like even imagine that a woman touching them wasn't an invitation to like do something. Like they could not imagine touching a woman platonically or just as like a human being. It just hypersexualized touch, and it turned these boys into weirdos, because if you keep teaching them, they're always surrounded with, you know, sex objects that you should never touch and never look at. That's all they start to think about. You could really see this manifest in like the way that these boys start to behave, because the few of the boys that I know that were like in that school for a really long time grew up to be full on predators. In fact, some of the boys that grew up in that school like did sexual assault, and I'm fully blaming the school's horrible culture surrounding sexuality for it. It was a boarding school, so these kids were like virtually raised in this environment. So who are you going to blame? You can't give the child individual responsibility. You are supposed to ensure that this person turns into a decent functioning human being, and you failed. You failed at it. The last one that I wanted to talk about was asymmetric. Is that the word? I don't know. Different punishments for girls and boys, because the rhetoric for the boys always was, stay away from that girl. She's gonna accuse you of doing sexual assault and it's gonna ruin your life. And for girls, it was, why can't you control yourself, you disgusting fucking whore? What is wrong with you? I remember there was this one time that this chick got caught making out with a guy in school, and literally nothing happened to the guy because his parents just came to school and his parents were like, what the fuck, I don't care. But then this chick, her parents weren't even in the country, and she was alone, and so they berated the shit out of her and they put her in what was virtually solitary confinement while this guy got off basically scot free. And this happened to this one particular poor girl like several times, because then after that they started misconstruing every interaction that she had with somebody of the opposite gender as her trying to like hoodwink said boy into like sleeping with her or whatever. The narrative was always girls are like these witches. There were so many other things that were wrong with the school. Like, honestly, I could go on and on. But this is one of the things that pissed me off the most, especially because I felt like I was the only one that could see it and the only one that was mad about it. Because who was I going to tell? Like my other friends? Like none of them understood what I was talking about. Like for them, it was regular. For them, it was like, yeah, this is just the way the world is, because a lot of them had, been at that school a lot longer than me, or they grew up in a culture where this was just normal. If you are watching this, I mean, mostly nobody's watching this, but if you are watching this, please leave a comment down below. Tell me if you've had any experiences with like people weirdly sexualizing kids in school, and what impacts that had on you, your life, people you know, maybe. Just say hi, whatever. It's been several years. It's been like 5 years since I was in school, and this shit still fucking pisses me off. It still pisses me off to this day, because like, what was wrong with you people? Like, why would you not leave me alone? Especially if you were considered conventionally attractive. Oh, I'm so attractive. If they deemed you sexy, let's put it that way, dear God, would you become a fucking target to that humiliation, like constantly? Constantly. You were not allowed to exist. Even if it was the case that you were making the little boys horny or whatever, they really attributed like almost a malice to it, as if the girls were doing it on purpose. And so they ended up treating us like supervillains instead of children. I keep saying us, I'm not talking about me specifically. And I actually was quite immune to these sorts of feelings because I was very aware of what was going on. But I could see it like really screw with a lot of my friends and a lot of the other girls that, were treated quite unfairly. And fuck you to my chutia school. Worst school in the world, bloody stole my money and treated me like shit, and get fucked. Yeah, just don't treat kids this way. This is not protecting children. There are demonstrable ways of protecting children, and this is absolutely not the way to do it. As usual, my memory is almost full, so I hope you enjoyed this one. If you exist, please leave a comment down below so that I know that I'm literally not just talking into the void, even though I kind of know that I am. I am talking into the void, but hey, maybe they'll find this in some archive like 1,000 years later and they'll be like, oh, that bitch existed. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one.